So, nā poke kuio gangaka. My name is Hahaiʻimana in Hopi. I'm Tewa in Hopi. My name means Mother of the Kachinas. Nā ano angata. I'm from Tewa village. Nā kulutoa. I'm Corn Clan, Tewa Corn Clan from the village of Tewa. My parents, my father is Sakhongbaya, and that means tobacco standing in a row. And my mother is Sikyakyaja. Her name is Yellow Parrot. So that's who I come from, and I just wanted to introduce the panelists up here on the stage, and I just want to let them know that it's an honor to be here with Beverly and the elders and the youth. And I was really encouraged by Danielle, Antelope. At the end here, she really touched my heart with how she spoke yesterday, and you could tell it was from her heart. You know, so I just am really encouraged, and it brings me a lot of hope for our youth who are up and coming. So there's Danielle Antelope at the far end, Executive Director for Fast Blackfeet from Browning, Montana. There's Elsie DuBray, from Stanford University. Blackfoot from South Dakota. Hope Flanagan, Community Outreach and Cultural Teacher, Dream of Wild Health, Minneapolis. Kelli Minor. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I get that mixed up? Kelli Minor. Yeah. I'm sorry. Southwestern Indian Polytechnic University. Darnell rides at the door. Elder, historian, traditional knowledge keeper. Spring Hill Ranch, Montana. And Beverly Stabber Warren, South Dakota State University of Nursing, Rapid City, South Dakota. So I just want to remind everybody to enter the questions into Pigeonhole. If you have any questions for any of them, make sure you're putting them in there, and we'll get started. So, okay, the first question I have for you all is, what do you think are the most urgent food and nutrition issues facing Native Americans? And we'll start with Beverly.
Oh gosh, there's so many. And I'm always teaching students how to prioritize, and here I am stuck. I think that working with our youth, because they are our future, they are our hope, like the youngsters up here with us today, and even younger, to start teaching K through 12 the nutritional realities along with our history, and how our foods kept us healthy for generations. So I think that if we focus on the youth, starting with preschool, for how to eat healthy and get their food, their taste buds used to certain foods and not the sugars and the salt. And what we do today, we need to stop doing that as parents and grandparents and start with babies.
Okay, go ahead. The same question?
Okay, the same question?
Yes. What do you think are the most urgent food and nutrition issues facing Native Americans?
One of the things that I would like to see again is those mothers that have new babies nurse them. Breastfed babies are the best. Most Native people, Indigenous people, are lactose intolerant. So therefore that causes a lot of different gastrointestinal problems. The children grow up with allergies and different things. So going back to the basics, which is nursing, is really a big thing for us. We nursed all our children. I nursed my brothers and sisters' babies. There were 5 of the same age, and one of us had chocolate milk, one had strawberry, and one had vanilla. So everybody got their choices. That's very important. The other is the fact that a lot of our younger people today rely on the fast foods, and that is a big growing industry. We're rather lucky where we're at. It's small, and we don't have a lot of fast food industries in our little town. So people go off the reservation to get a pizza, or they go off to get McDonald's, but yet they still get it. That's one of the things that's been a very impactive process because of the processed foods, the high fat content, and then the diabetes problem. So the younger people are in a need of more exercise, to realize that the computers and the iPads and all those can be set aside for a while, and go outside and look at what you have on the ground. This plant means this is what our grandmothers used to have. This is what our grandparents used to teach us. I've taught my grandchildren to eat rose petals. So it's there. We just need to start reliving, reviving, remembering, and rejuvenating that process.
Thank you. And really quick, I don't want to keep too much interjecting here, but I just wanted to share a quick story. My mother had 3 mothers. She, her own mother was having trouble breastfeeding her. And so other women in the village heard her crying. And so they came, and they all took turns breastfeeding my mother. So then my mother has extended family. She always honors her 3 mothers because she said that if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have survived. So I just really feel, and not only that, it connected her more to the village, which always goes back to the saying that a village raises a child. So thank you for sharing that. Okay.
How? Bujun in the way Magani Duk Nijibe Madazik, Nundanansi Indigo, Mikanak Dindu Dame, Tawanish Gonagening and Dunjaba. I'm just speaking to all the living beings out there, because what I see as really crucial right now is paying attention to who's in charge. Mother Earth is in charge, the spirits are in charge, the Creator is in charge. Go out and pay attention to the plants. The plants are changing fast because of climate change. So climate change is number 1. I mean, we have a Dream of Wild Health farm, but if the winds are so hard and there's fires and there's floods, what can you grow at a farm? So I'm seeing that over and over. So I've been paying attention. You have to pay attention. Put out your thank yous. I've been watching the wild plants for my whole life. Well, I remember when I was 2, my first questions were to my mom about the plants. And right here where we are in the Minnesota River, for the last 10 to 12 years, I've been watching the tall southern subspecies of wild rice come up the river. The lotus plant, a beautiful gift, a plant that fights Alzheimer's, that fights mental problems. It's coming up the river. It can give its gift. So right here where we sit at this land, with the return of the wild rice, and if you went down to the landing, you just go across the other side, it's full of the southern wild rice, then the birds can come back. But we don't know how much that rice can take. So where we have our farm, I know of 11 spots where you can go wild ricing, but only 1 was accessible this last year because of the drought. So you have to pay attention to the wild plants. What are they telling us? Who's going to show up? Maybe you're at your farm and the only thing that's showing up is purslane. Purslane is edible. It's not even native, but it gives its beautiful gift. Appreciate it, thank it. It's giving its gift of medicine. It's as close as we're going to get to an aloe right here, so you can pickle it, you can stir fry it, you can do so much with purslane. Every time that you go out weeding, look at that plant and say, what is your gift? Ask it, spend time with it, learn it, because it might be what shows up and offers itself as food and can handle what's going on with earth changes. Like around here, we call it climate chaos. You have to pay attention to that. The other end of that is how it's affecting our young people. So one of my old students said, would you please proofread my thesis? And the thesis was about environmental depression. So last week, I got to be a moderator person, intro person for Diane Wilson and Robin Wall Kimmerer, and their whole talk was about humanity and environmental depression, because we see what's going on and it's scary. So how do you address these thoughts, these feelings of anxiety? It's not going to work to try to just medicate ourselves away and use an opiate of technology. That's not going to work. Money isn't going to work. You can't buy what can't grow. Fresh water, you've got to have fresh water. It always goes back to fresh water, clean air, clean food, clean soil. How do you get that? So always be thinking about that. So right now I keep waiting for the spiritual solutions to come back. Learn your language, learn your traditional ways. If you can get to ceremonies, if you can find ways to reconnect with the spirit of the plant, with the creative spirit, I don't care what you call that creative spirit, but if you understand that there's something greater than you, understand that and be in touch with that. Recognize our youth. Our youth, the ones that have energy right now, are so important. But they've got to hear the elder part too, because we've been through it already. When Sean said that about the babies taken away, I was one of those kids. Me and my sister had necklaces for in case we got taken, that we could find each other. It wasn't that long ago. All this stuff is really recent history. So we've got to find a way to think like relatives, think like tribal people, and remember, this is all about being a good relative. I might not make it, I'm kind of old anyway. Maybe it's gonna be the slime molds that make it. Maybe it's gonna be the molds that are helping the trees talk to each other. Maybe they're gonna make it. Whatever makes it, remember we're related to all those fellow living beings. Miigwech bizendawyek.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, we can move on to the next. Go ahead.
Kini Karagiwi, Hainipi. Good morning, everybody. I just want to say that I think it's really awesome in answering the question, what do you think is the greatest issues facing your Indian communities? Everybody so far has mentioned the youth and talking about how important it is to involve and teach the youth. And I think I speak for all of us when I think that it's like, I totally agree. And I do some work back in my hometown of Madison, Wisconsin, doing a cooking class over Zoom that kind of became possible through the pandemic. We weren't able to do it in person, so we got together like these little grocery bags for all the families that signed up, and everyone signed in on Thursday night at 6 p.m., and then everybody got into the kitchen, and we had students from kindergarten through 12th grade pretty much. And it was really awesome to be able to see all the families up there on Zoom, getting the kids into the kitchen, getting them to be chopping vegetables. And in that class, I put a great emphasis on showing not only basic cooking skills, but really like collaborative recipes in a way, and ones that are easy for little kids to maybe, like not very complex, like nothing like or anything with the knife skills. And I think so far it's been really nice just getting the kids into the kitchen and working with these ingredients. Like we did some cornmeal, we did corn mush one time, and maple syrup, and I think it is bringing the ingredients, bringing the kids to the kitchen, putting those together. It's a good recipe.
Thank you. Thank you. Sounds delicious. Thank you. Okay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to take a second to introduce myself in my language. Hamadakiapi, Chantewashtea na pechuza begsto, Machpia Ilewi Machiapi, na Michaje ki Elsie DuBray, na Oóhenuŋpa Lakxóta, na Nueta na Hidatsa Hemacha, na Oqawtoynani yanke Hemataha. Stanford University Awablayeksto, na wana wania tu hopa unspemich ieksto palamayape. So, hello, my relatives. Today I greet you with good heart. My name is Machpia Ilewi, and my English name is Elsie DuBray. I am Tutskwat, Lakxóta, Mandan, and Hidatsa, not Blackfoot. I come from a community called Blackfoot. And I live on the Cheyenne River Reservation in South Dakota. I'm a Stanford University student, and I've been learning there for 4 years. Thank you all so much for having me. I feel truly blessed and honored and extremely grateful to be on the stage with all these wonderful women and to be able to attend this conference. I'm just going to start off by saying something a little difficult because I was doing a lot of speaking engagements for a while during the pandemic. And in honor of Nephi, Craig yesterday talked a lot about how it's important to tell your story and to be transparent and to destigmatize mental health. And so I just want to say that this is my first speaking engagement since I lost my younger brother to suicide during the pandemic, November 2020. His name is DuBray, and he was 18 years old, and he was my best friend. And when talking about the issues, the biggest issues that our communities face today, suicide's one of them. And to me, it always comes down to buffalo restoration for my community. I come from the Lakxóta Reservation, the Cheyenne River Reservation in South Dakota. My family raises buffalo or minimally manages buffalo on our ranch, and my dad has committed himself to buffalo restoration, and that's how my mother met him. My dad is Fred DuBray, and my mother is Michelle Fredericks DuBray. And I have, more than anything in my life, believed in buffalo restoration and buffalo and the power that they have for our people, and the strength that they provide us, the knowledge, the teachings, the lessons, the medicine. So when I think about the biggest issue for my community, there are all sorts of issues, but there's also a lot of strength, and there's also a lot of opportunity and potential. And I see the greatest potential being for buffalo restoration. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because of my upbringing, but I absolutely 100% wholeheartedly, more than anything I've ever believe in buffalo, the P'teo Yate, for our people and for our youth. And so, you know, when we're thinking about some of these issues regarding nutrition and food sovereignty and diabetes and heart disease, and I think a lot of the time it's really easy in like Western science terms to criticize people and to say, you don't be eating all this sugar, don't be eating that fast food. And a lot of the time that's not always like an option. We all know that, we've all talked about that. But I think something that I've learned in studying like decolonization theory, and there's a Dakota scholar, Waziatawi, who talks about how decolonizing is about empowerment. It's not just about criticizing, it's about empowerment. So when I think about how we're to address these nutritional issues in our community, I think about how can we empower our youth and their families to make healthier Lakxóta decisions regarding their food. And to me, I see a real responsibility in our tribal government to make opportunities with our tribal buffalo program for that to be possible for our communities, to empower our youth, to make opportunities available for youth to have a relationship with buffalo that I've been really blessed to have because of my family, but that still hasn't been complete because it hasn't been with community. It's been with my very intimate tiwahe, my family, and most people don't even have that access, and even still, I feel incomplete. My brother felt incomplete. More than anything, he believed in buffalo restoration. And what happened? He died. And he was enraged by the things that are happening. Colonialism has impacted our people on so many different levels. All of us, young and old, intergenerationally, in ways that we can see, in ways that we cannot see, in ways that we all feel. And that's a really long-winded way of saying that buffalo restoration is an absolute necessity for my people and for many other buffalo cultures out there. And I don't want to take up too much more time, but one more thing that I want to say is that our buffalo right now are facing a huge threat. Our herd and many other herds across the country are dying from a disease called Mycoplasma bovis, which is a cattle disease that has made its way into buffalo. I never say bison. But we have lost about 50% of our breeding cows. These animals have been on our land, like our specific animals have been on our land for 30 plus years that my dad has been managing them. He knows them, has known them longer than he's known me, more than he's known his wife. And they're dying because of this disease, and nobody wants to care. The federal government is very minimally involved with trying to address this issue, and it poses a huge threat. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, because I see it as my responsibility to do everything I can to bring health back to the Ptewa and to our Lakxóta people, and we can't do that if they're not even here. And this disease threatens them and threatens their very existence and could take them down to numbers we haven't seen since the 1800s with those piled up buffalo skulls because of the intentional eradication. And so I just wanted to draw some attention to that as well, because that's a huge issue that all of us face.
Thank you. I just want to say that Elsie touched on a lot of good points, and I always think about that as well, Elsie. I think about me being considered an elder already, because we've lost so many people in between, and it's been affecting my thought process and everything, because to get to the knowledge that they have takes many, many years, you know, and it's really important that we take care of ourselves. And I see so many people younger than me on Hopi, young kids passing away, taking their lives. And so just want to remind everybody that we all need to pray. We all need to teach our kids how to pray, because it's really important that they continue to have hope and faith. It's also when you're praying, Hope brought up a good point. When you're praying also, and you're praying maybe for some kind of sickness to leave you or something, and you're praying to all the beings, like she said, these plants show up. They show up in your lives, and I know because it's happened to me too. It's happened for my children when they were facing like Bell's palsy and different things like that. These plants just show up, you know, but you have to be open. You have to be open here. We have to be open to our children. We have to listen. And that's something that I'm really trying to teach myself. I have 5 daughters and 1 son. And I always tell them, if you can't talk to me, find somebody to talk to. You know, it's really, I know I wanted to go over and hug Elsie, but I still can't. Because I know how it feels like to lose a brother. I also lost a brother. So thank you. Thank you for letting me do that. I know I wasn't supposed to do that, but we'll move on to the last panelist. Did you want me to say the question again? What do you think are the most...
One more. Don't you have one more?
Yes, she's
Okay.
right there. Yeah. So what do you think are the most urgent food and nutrition issues facing Native Americans?
Yeah, I'm going to start by introducing myself as well. Oóhenuŋpa Astanski, Nadanigu Danielle Antelope, Nitsadapi Asita, Nitsadapi Amaskapi Pikuni. My name is comes in singing. I am called Danielle Antelope. I come from Browning, and I am Amaskapi Pikuni, as you know, Blackfeet. I'm not sure if my answer is going to answer that, but I want to talk about what Elsie talked about. I am a suicide survivor. And today, and the way that you heard me speak yesterday, that strength wasn't found yet. And I share this because you have children at home. You have nieces and nephews. And I want to tell you what saved my life. It was unburying my family's past. That history I shared with you yesterday about my family. You know how many tears my family shed to share that story with me. For me to find out what happened with each generation, to not set blame that my mom should have did this, my grandma should have passed down this, to find those traumas in each one of them and realize that those traumas vibrate through me. It is so prevalent in our community. And we've seen it even more through COVID. We had more deaths happening from suicide and car accidents than we did from COVID during COVID. I didn't cry yesterday, so I had to cry today. When I started to undig those truths, my great aunts told us the stories of how they grew up. My grandmother is not here with me anymore for me to ask her those questions, so I had to go to her sisters. They told me the struggle. They told me that shift. And they told me that they prayed for me. They prayed for our family to have a generation who takes all of that information and brings it back, because they knew one day it would be safe enough for us to practice these again. They wouldn't have to hide researching and memorizing their plants at boarding schools. And my mom always tells me when I do this work, "My girl, I wish I would have did this." And instead, I tell her, "You're a single mom, and there's 4 of us, and you got me across that stage." And I think when it comes to food and nutrition in our community, that the thing that really caught me and that could help our youth and our people is the way that we talk about food and nutrition. We cannot teach our people the same way that we're teaching in a white community. Because what we tend to think is, oh, they want us to eat white. Oh, only the white people could eat healthy. In Montana, it's, oh, Bozeman people could eat like that. Missoula people could eat like that. But we live on the reservation. So we flip the script. Tell them the history. Tell them that food system change. Because knowledge is power. And how are they going to know that it's their responsibility to learn this work if you don't tell them why it's their responsibility? When I had my son, I knew that I was meant to be here. I knew that I have work to do with him. And so the way that we teach at Fast Blackfeet is the traditional food. In this recipe kit, we have buffalo meat from the Evans Ranch, right down the road. So you're excited to go home and you can cook this food, and then when you see Jamie Evans, you're like, hey, I ate your buffalo meat. People get empowered by you talking about the power of that food. About how we were very healthy people in the beginning. Mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. Because sometimes we tend to get that feeling like my grandmother did when she had diabetes. And they tell her, you can't eat pepperoni sticks like that no more, Teresa. And she says, oh, they're trying to take things from me. They push these foods on me. And now they're trying to take these foods from me, saying that that's what made me sick. What we need to do is use our family stories to relate to our people. When I share my story, people tell me their stories, or people go find their answers in their families. My brother practices language, song, and dance. We were not raised cultural. My mom made us go to church on Easter and Christmas. And we would say, oh, my friend is going to ceremony. She's going to ceremony, and she invited me. Can I go? My mom would say, no. No, we were not allowed to go to ceremony. You are not allowed to go to ceremony. Those ways, we are unknown. We don't know them no more. She says, but once you turn 18, do whatever you want. So I did. I went and learned that information. I went and found those people. And this summer, I'll be going to ceremony. And that was my responsibility of doing it. And today, I teach my mom all those things. I called my mom and talked to her for an hour last night. She knew I was so nervous to present yesterday. She kept telling me, my girl, those grandmothers are lined behind you. She said, and I'm right there next to you. Yesterday, I had nothing planned for the PowerPoint. I rehearsed it over and over and over and over, something different every time. Being real is what's going to connect you. Being real is what's going to get people on board to doing the real work. So I encourage you, whatever your job is, whatever you do in your community, find a way to indigenize it so that you could relate it to Indigenous people. Sorry I took so long.
It's fine. Thank you. Slowly. Thank you. I just want to say that you didn't go because you were here to deliver more for everybody else. You didn't go, it wasn't your time, because you're still going to empower more people, more youth, to stand up the way you did. So you were here, you're kept for a reason. So I just want to thank you for that. And I also want to remind people that for me, our organization called Tutskwat Oqawtoynani, and it means to helping the earth to gather her strength. And so we're trying to clean our mesa at First Mesa from top to bottom. You wouldn't imagine how much trash. So far since 2016, we removed 28 tons of trash just in that short. And we've only been behind the back of one village, Tewa village. That's not even going, we were wanting to go all the way around. But we really strongly feel, my father feels this, my mother feels this, that we're forgetting to clean our sacred spaces. And that's why when we go into ceremony, that the earth can't feel and hear all the vibrational energies of our songs, of our prayers, because it's covered in layers and layers and layers of trash. Mm-hmm. And so once we feel that once the land is cleared, that the health of our people will return back to Hopi, and that our children will be healed as well. Because if you're not healed up here and in here, you're not going to care about all this nutrition. Everybody can throw all the examples, models, programs at you, but if you're not healed in here and here, then you're not going to care about that. And so I just really think that we've lost our path. For Hopi, we believe we're living in the fourth world, which is the last world. And so that tells us something, that tells us that we need to reconnect. And I just feel like listening to all our young people here speaking so strongly. I wish I was that strong when I was their age, because, I know I'm getting stronger, but I need to remain strong to be here when they're this, when I'm this age. So and that's not a bad thing, it's just that. I'm not trying to say it a bad thing. Okay, sorry. Not even to offend you. Okay, so the next question. What's one new thing you learned at the conference? What's one thing that you relearned and was reinforced? And what medicine will you take back to your people that you learned to help you personally and in your work? So there's 3 parts.
The first part of what I would like to say is I really appreciate the young people on this panel. This is a great idea, whoever came up with it, to merge the youth and the elderly, to express what we know, because there's hope. When I listen to these young people, Kelli, Danielle, Elsie, I think about hope, because they're help too. The hope for the future. This is what I see in my work at Arizona State with all the Lakxóta student nurses who talk just like that. You know, they're open and they're passionate and they're not fearful. There's a lot of the fear that we used to have that has gone away, and these youngsters today are showing that there's strength in what we're doing. And so we all need to keep doing that. We need to keep inclusion of our youth. Let them have their say, because I learn a lot every time. Maybe that's what I could say is the one thing I learned or relearned again is to listen to the youth. Where did they get that knowledge and that insight? You see, so those of you who are parents and grandparents, maybe you're part of that. That whatever you taught your grandchildren or your children, they accumulate within themselves, and they get to a certain point when they have the terminology, concepts, and they come out with it, and it's very wise for their age. So I would say that. And what was the second part of the question?
The last part is, what medicine will you take back to your people to help you personally and in your career?
I get strength from this group. I like talking to people, and what I'm hearing here for the past 2.5 days, it's beautiful how people are open to say what they're feeling. And so we all need to do that, to say what we're feeling along with what we're thinking, because we don't do that enough. People tend to hide pain, and we need to stop doing that. Express it, because whoever's listening to you probably feels the same way. So I'm very happy today to see this happening, and I thank the three of you and the two. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That reminded me of Willie Littlechild. He's an elder, and I don't remember what tribe he was, but I heard him at a conference say that the worst thing that the boarding school did to him and the students there was to erase compassion and love from them. And he said that as an act of decolonization, I guess it's an act of defiance. He says that he wakes up every morning and he says, "I love you" to his wife and his family every day. So I just thought that was beautiful. I had to share that because she's talking about the same things. So thank you. Go ahead. Do you want me to read it again?
Sure.
Okay, so what's one new thing you learned at the conference? What's one thing that you learned and was relearned and was reinforced? And what medicine will you take back to your people to help you personally and in your career?
Well, one thing I have to say is it's when they talk about elders, or they, or you, or us, it's a new term for me because in our way, you can be an elder in different capacities. But for me, after my mother passed, and I'm it, and my brother called me and he says, "You're it. You're the elder." And to see my name there with elder by it is a new experience, and that's what I'm feeling here. I thank all of you for helping me be able to learn and relearn, because every day is a learning day. We never stop learning. Every day we're in school learning, teaching each other, teaching one another. And you've taught me to accept some things that I was having a hard time accepting. The other is that I'm really happy that all of you came and overcome the fear. We have a cabin fever problem, and that's called pandemic cabin fever. But now we're out in the open again, and it's just like what we're talking about with the foods and the whole process of life. This COVID has taught us something, and it's taught us that we are really the real people. That's what we call ourselves in our language. We are the real people all of you are real people, and I welcome that in my medicine. And what I'm going to take back is the lessons that you've all taught me. These young people here sitting, expressing their values and their actual heartfelt life. As in my position, we can say, been there, done that. And we have experienced much more than we are sharing. And one thing that we're learning from the youth is that it's okay. It's okay to share. It's okay to cry. My grandmother, when my grandmother's before me, I can go back 8 generations and I know what the problems were, and I can see how it's affected me and how I'm going to change that for my children and my grandchildren, and now I have great-grandchildren. So the medicine that I'm taking back is that knowledge that you've all given us, to be able to take it to heart, to be able to remember, again, who we are and where we come from. It's very important, because once we remember who we are and where we come from, we're on this path that leads us to where we're going. And all of us as Native people, Indigenous, whatever we call it, First Nations, we have something in common. And that is the battle that we have fought to be able to relay these messages. Who am I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? And that's the message in the medicine that I'm taking back, is I finally got that answer. I've taught that for years and years and years. Who are you? We introduce ourselves and we tell what clan we come from, who our parents were, our grandparents. Even if they're gone, they're still back there. They have their hands on our shoulders, and we're proud of that. I come from the Buffalo Dung clan, the Buffalo Chip clan, because those buffalo chips gave us strength and nothing could harm us. That's why I have my hands over my stomach, because I was taught that from my grandparents. You shield off all the negative energies and things that are thrown at you, and then you sing your warrior song or your praise song, and you're able to go on. And those are the things that I've garnered from this message here today. This message for the past 2.5 days is how strong you are all. You're becoming something that you really don't realize. Each of you have a gift, and that is from the earth mother, from the sun, the moon, and the stars. You're alive, you breathe. And the music that you've garnered is right from the in utero. The first drum you heard was that heartbeat. And you take that music on with you. Then you have to have the nourishment from the food, of which we're all talking about. Food is medicine, food is healing, and I'm a product of that. 5 years ago, I could not move. My hands were bigger than what we call red wieners at home. My body was not functioning because of the foods I was eating. So I was able to say, stop, this is it. I'm going to go back to my traditional foods, my foods that will make me healthy. Today I can go like this. My fingers I can use again. I'm not running or walking as fast as I used to, but I'm going to do that because I went back to the basics. The food, the wild game, the buffalo, the elk, the moose, not so much deer, and not so much some of the other foods that you might have in your area, but the foods that I have in my area made me well again. And I found that out through my grandmother's researching. A lot of it was secret. A lot of it was kept secret. But these younger people taught me that I need to do that so I can be here for them. And I'd be able to share these things with all of you. So continue with the foods. Like you're hearing, they talk to you. They tell you. You might need a little more vitamin D. All of us do, especially those of us that live in the West, because we don't, what do they say about people that live in the West where it rains all the time? We don't grow, we just rust. But that, all those things we can take back to our communities and whatnot. And there's another thing that I have to express on this panel as an elder. Of course, been there, done that, knowing who you are and where you come from, but that sense of humor is what made us stay alive. My grandparents, my great-grandparents, the one who gave me my Indian name was a product of Carlisle. But had he listened and stayed away, and not come home, I wouldn't be here today. And that's what I have garnered from this whole experience is we all have those things in common, and we all need to garner the strength from them to continue on. How the wind blows, how the rain falls, how the sun shines, and how we breathe this air is who we are and where we come from. Hanya.
Polly, thank you. Okay.
Gee, there's so much I can think of. I love what you said about the trash. Today, I have my whole life had an elder woman that I've gone to. I still have an elder woman that I go to, and she can give me an ear tug. I mean, and if I'm on the wrong path. One of the things that the last two elder ladies that I've always gone to, they both say, be kind to each other, don't gossip, nurture each other. I'm so grateful for that. I think about what you said about cleaning up the reservation. This elder lady, Oóhenuŋpa up there at Nigugunsa up in Canada, she talks about, I asked her, I said, how come we can't do those, people when I was young, I remember people changing form, I remember seeing, these things that would appear in the lodges, and you go like, wow, how come that, you don't see that as much? She goes, there's so much junk in the air through the waves that we use with our devices, our cars, all these things, they put this trash in the air. So it's harder. So we just have to be more diligent about connecting with those spirits because they're still here. And the old way of thinking about relationships, they say, Anek kuchi biganug. And what that means is we are all connected like a chain, going this way, and all connected like a chain going that way. Time is not linear. They just want to tell us that, but it's not. In our old way of being, they say, what is time? Oh, diba igans, it's a measured thing. That's all it is, it's a measured thing. But we had a really good talk about, well, it's a vector in a globe, and it could be going that way, or that way, or that way. All the time, you'll hear the elders talk about 4 dimensions above, 4 dimensions below, not any judgment about, like, is this good, is that bad? It's just different vibrations, different movement. So pay attention to what you can from that movement. This elder friend of mine from up at Moose Factory in Canada, she was talking about, oh, my deceased husband, he comes and visits, but he's between 7 and 8. And I'm like, 7 and 8, those dimensions down there, those lower dimensions, so it might sound like it's a different kind of way of expressing. But one of the things I learned too was getting quiet enough to hear. So to me, that means get out in the woods and get quiet. And we have our ways of fasting, but not many people fast anymore. Around here, it would be 4 days fasting, no water, no food. So you fast to get quiet and to listen and find out who you are. And then when you get your name, my Niawa'a is my namer. She gave me a name, not so I could be big and important. Oh, look at me, I'm Nudanansikwe. Nuh-uh, I'm just filling a place. I'm a placeholder. Her great auntie was a plant gatherer. So today, and taught the kids, taught the children. That's what I do. There's gonna be a Nudanansikwe after me. So I don't get caught up in my ego. I don't get caught up in, oh, look at who I am, look at what I do. That has nothing to do with it. You have responsibilities when you come to this earth, to nurture this earth, to take care of this earth, to take care of each other. It's not about being all loud and saying things to get attention. It's for filling out those responsibilities. Another thing I'm so grateful that people have brought up about the whole circle. So even those tiny babies, I still, once a week, I work in an Ojibwe immersion classroom. So I get to see the little teeny tiny ones, and they're listening to the language, and they're learning the language. And so many times, those little tiny ones, they would say something. I remember this little 3-year-old boy looked at me and he goes, "Oh, do you remember when I was the mom and you were the baby and we were in a canoe?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's so sweet." Or another little guy who had lost all of his family and was in such a rough situation, and he picked up the little flutophone and he goes like, "Oh, this is an eagle bone whistle." This was a 3-year-old boy, and he showed me, "This is how you use an eagle bone whistle." And I looked at my coworker and I said, "Did you tell him that?" I go, "No." "Did you tell him that?" "No." He just knew. Those spirits, they talk to those little ones. They're really close to that doorway where we come in and out. So they're really close to those elders. Remember, in a wigwam or a teepee, in a longhouse, everybody was together. You didn't say, here's the old people, here's the babies, here's the young ones, here's the middle-aged ones. It was all together. We need to learn from each other. The other thing I really want to say is the plants are listening. And if you have a dream, pay attention to what they look like, because if you don't know, it's like, well, it's green. It had a stem. But they do listen and they talk to us all the time. So one of the things that I've always been told, and I know it's true, on my plant walk, we were seeing all kinds of this plant called cleavers. Said, "Oh, that one right there, we call it sagedewin. And that one is used for cleaning your lymph glands." Oh my gosh, it's showing up like gangbusters the last few years because we need to clean from the environmental dirt that's in the air, in the food, in the water. Clean that off, clean that off. Another one that's showing up like crazy around, right, from Bad River Reservation at the tip of Lake Superior all the way up towards, almost up to Grand Portage, is valerian root for pain. It's real strong, and it's about 20 feet thick all the way around. It's showing up and showing up. So these plants, they listen. They're our relatives, and they see what we're going through, and they have their gift. Every single plant has at least one gift, and most of them have 10 or 20 gifts. So it's just finding out those gifts. They know their gifts. It's us. We don't always know what the gifts are. So we have to learn those gifts, and sometimes those gifts will come through in dreams, or talk to them, spend time with them. They'll tell you, "Don't pick me," or pick me. I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but you're too little," So you got to spend some time with them. Another thing, I really have to say this, it was so interesting this spring. I was digging up a really powerful root that the biochemistry of the root is really powerful, and the spirit of the root is really powerful. When I was younger, you might have people that you didn't even have to see the root. You were just working with the spirituality of the root, the spirit of the root. It was always somewhere on that line. Like, is it mostly the spirit of the root or mostly the biochemistry of the root? But it was hardly ever just the biochemistry of the plant. So we've got to remember that piece. I was after this really strong root, and I had met this Lakxóta lady that had said, "Oh yeah, when I was in boarding school, they mashed up my knees, and my kneecaps are still broken. See?" And she showed me. This was a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. And she said, "That root right there, that medicine man, he wrapped it up, and I had to sit and pray for 4 days, no moving. And I've been able to walk ever since. Even though my kneecaps are busted up, I don't have any pain." So remember those things, that it isn't just a physical world that we're dealing in, we're in a spiritual world as well. So remember that, carry that in your heart. Gosh, there's so much.
Thank
I
you.
met a young lady, just one more thing.
That's
I
okay.
met a young lady who was potato clan. So when I was digging up the root, all these wild potatoes came up with me. Oh my gosh, this wild potato, the genus is Apio, some people call it groundnut. We don't grow it as a food in the United States. It's from here. It was our potato,
Yes.
the whole eastern United States. We even have a clan for it, yay. They grow it in Asia as food. Why don't we grow it as food? It fights diabetes. We had all kinds of foods that fight diabetes. So just paying attention, listening about those old foods, looking them up and following through with them. Grow them if you can. But it's sometimes hard to get our communities to go back to some of those pieces. Oh, thank you for
Okay.
listening.
Thank you. I know we only have a few minutes here, but I was always told you don't interrupt elders. So I know
Sorry.
that. No, that's fine. That's fine. We have a couple. Let me see. I'll go ahead and let me see. What's one new thing you learned at the conference? What is one thing you relearned and was reinforced? What medicine will you take back to your people that will help you personally and in your career?
Well, one thing that I learned is that there's people out there that are going to be making little toys out of traditional food. That was super exciting to hear, because that's not something that really comes up, but I'm very glad to have that be coming up in the future. One thing I would take away from this conference is it's hard to name just one. I mean, like, even just sitting up here listening to everybody, I wish I had like a little notepad, because there's such a wealth of knowledge here held by everybody, and it's been really wonderful to be able to just kind of exist in this environment. I recently moved away from home for the first time, from Wisconsin to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I moved alone, and I did start to get lonely after a couple weeks there. And one thing that I did find was comfort in the kitchen, like I was saying earlier. And I think that we can all relate on that. Nutrition is a big part of being in the kitchen, and I just think that concern and gathering is something that provided me a lot of comfort, and I can feel that in this room. And along with that, something to take back to my community is the knowledge that there's so many people out there doing such a diverse array of things surrounding nutrition. And I think that's really awesome, and I'm able to share information, like with my family. I've got 2 younger siblings, and they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do. They want to go into STEM, but the exact pathway is still kind of blurry. But I want to push them into nutrition or something. I just want them to be healthy and learn the skills to be healthy and help others. Same. Yeah, it's been a wonderful time here.
Thank you. Thank you. So go ahead, Elsie.
Yeah, something I learned or that stuck with me yesterday was what FDIPR is doing right now, because I've always been highly critical of government food programs specifically for Native people. And I'm encouraged by the things that they are doing and hopeful, but still maintain my firm belief that while you best believe that the federal government has a responsibility to be helping us with our food systems in any way that they can, that they need to listen to us, and that the answers are coming from within our communities, and they're not going to come from the federal government. They never will. They never have. And so I'm hoping that we can see a real commitment to honoring that. And then something that I think I've relearned, being on this panel and hearing all these other women speak, and then being at the conference in general, is that, kind of like Kelli was saying, that I'm not alone in this. I feel like sometimes when I'm out at school, at an institution like Stanford that really doesn't want to support the types of things that I care about and really could care less about my little community on the res in South Dakota, that there are people who do care about that and who care about their own communities and who are doing the work. And it's really empowering, and it's such a breath of fresh air to be in a space like this as opposed to a classroom that tries to compartmentalize and westernize every single facet of our being. And that's difficult. And then also just to, I guess something that I would also just take forward is to not be afraid, like Danielle was saying, and that I feel like there are so many heavy things that we experience, so many heavy things that our elders have experienced, so many things that our youth have experienced. We haven't lived very long, and yet we've experienced a lot more than we probably should have had to by this age or even ever. And yet we're here. We have so much to offer, all of us, every single person in this room. We have our own medicines, responsibilities, and gifts that we can give back to our people. And I think even though all these things are so heavy and all like the news right now, and last night I was crying in my room thinking about all those kids and their families in Texas, and last week it was all of our Black relatives in Buffalo, and all of the hate that is being spread. We cannot be afraid. We can't be afraid. There's no time, there's no room in this world to be afraid right now. And I'm just really honored and empowered to be here. And that's something I'm going to take back with me, is just that no matter how hard things are, we can't be afraid, and we have to stand strong and take courage for our people.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, try to be real fast. One thing I learned, that Eastern Shoshone is in the house, and my mom's Blackfeet, and my dad's Eastern Shoshone, and I was born and raised on Blackfeet. I go visit my dad in the summertime, but never really had a connection to the Eastern Shoshone tribe or their lands. And as you heard in the Pechikucha presentations, there are grandmothers on the land. And I approached them and asked them, what can I do? And how can I go out with you guys? And they extended an invitation. And I'm so excited to be able to start scheduling my trips to Wind River around their plant harvesting. But to learn and be a part of more lands. We harvest in Glacier National Park, and what I want to work on and help with the Eastern Shoshone is to make sure that they're able to harvest in those national parks in their area. That was their traditional territory for gathering and hunting. That's one thing that I learned. One thing that I relearned, I shared that my name is Comes in Singing. I was given that name when I was 8. And I remember my grandmother, we gave her an offering, my great-grandmother, that was in the picture that came back from boarding school. We gave her an offering, and she gave my sister and my brothers their Indian names that day. And then she told me, you gotta come back tomorrow. And I was like, she must have ran out of names. And I thought all night, like, man, what's my name gonna be, like Eagle Woman or something? And then I went and seen her the next day, and she was still sitting in her room really thinking, and she was, and I come in, and she said, I'm ready for you. She said, your name comes in singing. She said, it comes from my great-grandmother, hollering in the air. I looked at her, and I was like, Grandma, I don't sing. I was like, I'm a really bad singer. She laughed so hard, and she was like, that's not what it means. She said, you'll grow into it, and one day you'll know what it means. Being at events like this, and being able to share my voice, my story, my passion, that's my song. And that's what I relearned at this event. What I'm gonna take back with me to my community is the energy. I was at a conference last week, drained. This conference, I'm so energized, I'm running off like 4 or 5 hours of sleep each night because I'm talking to my mom about what's going on. I'm gonna bring back this energy and the knowledge and the things that I learned here today, because energy like this that we have is like fire, and it spreads. You just have to turn on those light bulbs, and as soon as they're on, you got more and more powerhouses out there. That's what I'll be taking home with me. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Thank you very much, everybody, for sharing what you all shared. And I just, like, we could talk and talk and talk. There's so much that all of us want to learn from each of you. And I just want to thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel bad or anything.
so sorry.
I was always told you don't interrupt, you're listening. So just one thing I want to leave everybody with is that something my father always reminds me of, and he says that interdependence and independence is the cornerstone of a people's spirit and strength. So just to remind you all, we all need each other, but also we need not to be fearful anymore. We need to step forward and move forward and do the hard work and continue to do the hard work on the ground. Put your boots on and start working, So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all listening. And thank you to the panelists. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to take a moment to thank everyone, the panelists, of course, all of you for coming. Denisa, did Denisa do a great job?
Yes.
And I just want to remind everyone, we have recorded all the sessions. I'll email everyone with the links so that we will have the videos uploaded for you to use. We will send an email out asking everyone to fill out an evaluation form. Please do. I think maybe we're going to raffle something really good off too for people who fill out the evaluations. And if you have enjoyed the conference, write some testimonials in there, because we'll use them as ammunition to try to get this conference to continue, to go to funders with how has this conference been transformative to you or useful. If you're interested in helping brainstorm how to continue this, please email me. And just thank you, everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Denisa now.
So powerful. Thank you so much. I think people were crying. We were feeling that, everything. And Valerie did a wonderful job. And Valerie and I always cry. We cry so much. Thank you. As they're still up here, I just really want to give some closing comments. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of the facilitators, all of everyone who's behind these scenes here, all of everyone who has worked back there, and all the servers and cooks and what it takes to create something like this. Thank you. And also to the Shakopee and Metawakan Sioux community. Thank you for hosting us again and for being on your homelands. Thank you so much. And to my own crew, it takes, like Valerie said, a community to raise a child, but it also takes a community to raise someone like myself as an advocate, a community health advocate. And it takes many moms, like you said, you're calling your mom, you're calling, your person to, to get that strength, to get the encouragement. And for me, my mother would have been here, but she decided to attend virtually. And so, Mom, I love you. Dad, I love you. Shamasana, my grandma Jessie is online. She's our matriarch, and my Auntie Elle, and my sisters Lauren and Hannah. It's taking many of our people and our own and our DCA advocates, Reiko, who's very dear to me, that has helped, and also in person, Mackie and Joshua and Kristen, Ian, Dr. Kurzer, Della, Mara, and as well as Julie. Thank you for being here with me, bringing me a drink and checking on me, making sure I'm sleeping. I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep a night. And so, just knowing, that it takes a lot of collective action to keep us going, to keep us well, and to keep us safe, and to keep us healthy, and to pray for one another. And like one of our elders said, just taking the risk to be in this room. Thank you, because we didn't know if you would come and if elders would come. We were very concerned to be able to, know that this should be a safe space. And so I hope that you guys felt safe. I hope you felt welcome. I hope you felt loved. And I hope you will go back and take that fire and take that energy to your communities and your families. And also the biggest thing, forgive yourself. forgive yourself. We are all humans. We'll make mistakes. We'll go through things unpredicted and unexpectedly, but forgive yourself. So next time I see you, I'm going to say, F you. Forgive yourself. And also the other thing, because I don't curse or I don't cuss, and so I was really thinking like, because they call DCA and us like FBI, the fry bread investigators, and I was saying, I'm going to say the new saying like, I don't give a fry bread. And so I hope you take all of these different things back home, but I just really wanted to send you guys off with a poem that I wrote, and I want to share with you these words, and as we come to a close, and we'll be closing us in a prayer soon. So thank you, everyone. My prayer in the years ahead and generations ahead is centered around what we say in Dine, Sehasen, meaning have an expectation of goodness, anticipation of strength and capacity, assurance of positivity and growth, and it also means reflection. It will be a reflection of intergenerational responsibility and investment. Sehasen means hope. As I think of you all and our ways forward, I pray you will hold one another in your hearts until we are with one another again, until we see one another again. As I think of our days here, I share this poem I wrote in the pandemic, standing at the river praying. I hope this poem blesses you. Sehasen. Liberation and restoration surround us, refreshing like the cool breeze on a warm day, like the power of flowing brisk water of our sacred rivers. Our hearts beat with the realities of suffering and pain all around us, like the snow that waits to melt into the river, like the rocks that wait to be greeted by the spring. We wait for healing. Like the air circulating freely, roaming freely in abundance, we pray for freedom and an increased overflow of hope, joy, love, and peace. Like the tall willows along the riverbank, we wait for our turn to be refreshed. Like the moment we wait to feel the warmth of the sun on our skin at dawn, we wait another day, another night to be healed. Trauma lingers with unpredictability like the disruption in our gardens and fields from climate change. We wait like our crops to be rescued by the rain, waiting, dry, and roasted. Like hills and mountains wait for company, so do the pillars of our families, our elders, and our vulnerable, waiting. Listen. To the birds who greet us from dawn to dusk, we are still here. The moon and stars shine brightly, blessing us with existence and wonder, but there's a long line for healing. While we wait, we express our gratitude for the air. We honor the aspiration in our lungs. We pray for this moment, this breath. As we pause, we see, hear, smell, and feel our blessings that still surround us today. We are reminded we are still able to breathe. Healing is on the way. Thank you, everyone. Akihat.